Hello and welcome to the world-famous and award-winning Driving You Crazy podcast. This is the show where we talk about all things transportation, anything to get you from here to there. I'm the traffic anchor and the transportation reporter for Denver 7 News, Jason Luber. If you would like to contact me, my contact links are all in the description of the show. You can also rate and review the show. I'd appreciate that. If you want to call the listener hotline, it's been cool over the last couple of weeks. 303-832-0217 is that number. Now, I really enjoy going to auto shows. The one here in Denver, which is now renamed the Colorado Auto Show, it starts this weekend. And I like them not just because they have thousands of square feet of great-smelling new carpet, but because there are cars from all kinds of car companies, not just one brand. You get to see Toyota and GM and Stellantis and all of them, Ford and Subaru, all of them right in one place. You're not just seeing one brand. So one of the largest auto shows in the country is the New York International Auto Show. That is also happening this weekend. And joining me now to talk about what is new, what's the latest trends, what's happening in New York, is Brian Moody, the executive editor at Autotrader. Brian, thanks so much for being here on the world-famous Driving You Crazy podcast.
Hey, good morning, Jason.
I know we're short on time, so we'll just roll right into it. And
Sure.
It's nice to talk to you again. It was actually 2 years ago that we talked about the right time to buy a car, but obviously a lot has changed since then.
Right.
So I guess I'll ask you again while I have you here, as I did back then, knowing that it's natural to want to time a market. But are we making ourselves crazy trying to wait for the air quotes right time to buy a car?
Well, I would say right now, if someone was already in the market for a newer used car, the time is right now. I don't see what it's going to advantage you by waiting. That being said, if you're not in the market for a newer used car and you're perfectly fine with the car that you have, don't let headlines scare you into buying something that you don't need. So now would be a good time to start the process. Now would be a good time to buy because the future prices might go up. But, generally speaking, now is a good time.
Because obviously one of the major considerations for buying now has been all the talk of tariffs and how that could affect prices of new cars, today, tomorrow, and down into the fall. So what's your feeling here? And is there any talk on the floor of the show there in New York about tariffs and what could happen with the auto market in the summer and fall?
Well, one thing we've seen is that some automakers are sort of like mentioning their American manufacturing up front when they do a press conference. Other than that, there's not a lot of talk of tariffs. I think that that's something that's happening in the back of people's minds. But right now, it's not on the forefront of consumers' minds.
It was interesting. I saw a Hyundai commercial, maybe it was during the Masters, where they said they're freezing prices despite the tariffs. Is this just a good public relations move or a way for them to maybe clear out their inventory before they have the new cars come out in the fall?
It might be a little bit of both. I think that what they definitely want to do, automakers want to beat their competition on price. So we've seen some manufacturers lower prices, some manufacturers hold prices, and some manufacturers saying we're going to pause shipments.
Interesting. And I've also heard talk from people that if new car prices do go up, they'll just keep their car, the current car they have, rather than wait to buy in the fall if those prices do go up. But tariffs could also rise the price of parts. So the folks that do hold on to their used car longer could also see an effect with higher prices when they go get it to repaired or maintained.
Yes, that is possible. To the degree that's possible, we don't really know. So I would say, again, like the buying thing, if you suspect that your car might need a major repair or have maintenance due, I would make that appointment now. It's not just about the cost of the parts. That might go up, but we don't know that for sure. Right now, parts are exempt while we figure out an accounting process for that. It could be that down the road, certain parts might not be made as plentifully as they are now, so as the company can, protect their budget or their profits. So I would make the appointment now and look for the repair that you think you might need, get into the shop now, and be first in line for whatever it might need.
And I also thought it was interesting to hear from Jaguar and Range Rover saying that they're really not going to start or not going to keep sending cars here. So we could see a lower inventory of not only those vehicles, but maybe down the road, depending on how all this washes out, other car makers might start sending fewer cars here too.
Yes, that's possible. That's definitely possible. What they're trying to do is figure out where the costs are going to be incurred and how they can absorb that, or if they have to pass it on to the consumer.
I'm speaking with Brian Moody, executive editor at Autotrader. He's on the floor of the New York International Auto Show. And speaking of the show, have you noticed an overall trend with the styles or the types of vehicles at the show this year? When I talked to Kia, they were really pushing sedans over crossovers. Are you seeing maybe a higher number of sedans at the show?
Yeah, that's definitely fair. That there are some sedans, compact sedans, that are still popular. They're not going away completely. Kia's K4 hatchback is a good example, but they also have an electric EV4 that looks more like a sedan than the average car. But on the other hand, we see Subaru making an Outback that looks a little bit more like an SUV. So I think both are possible and both are happening at the same time. As sedans go away, then more sedans can be added.
But when you think about a truck, when it used to be a Pathfinder, used to be a truck like a 4Runner, that has morphed into something completely different. So they could call it whatever they want, but they're going to make it look a certain style.
That's exactly right. Most pickups today are more SUV-ish than really being a pickup.
Yeah. In the past few years, we have actually seen a major push, and I'm sure you're seeing it there, to the battery electric vehicles. But it also seems that there has been some companies that have pulled back on that a bit, at least going back to more of the hybrid model. We've seen that with Stellantis. Are you seeing that at the auto show?
Well, I think there's going to be more hybrids going forward. So yes, more hybrids is definitely a thing, but electric cars, battery electric vehicles are not going away. Sales growth is continuing to grow, but growing at a slower rate than we had anticipated.
Is there a reason for that? Do you think that people are just not buying them because of the range anxiety or other issues with buying a battery electric vehicle, or is there something else going on?
I think it might be a little bit of a lack of education, doesn't work for their lifestyle, hybrids work better for what they do now. Also, 80% of people who buy an electric car charge up at home, so if that eliminates people who might live in an apartment or rent, then that would be a partial explanation too.
Yeah, and one of the features that car makers like to put in there, especially the electric cars, because I think they try to almost UFO the cars, if you will, make them look like they're a space-age vehicle, right? And they have these large digital screens like giant iPads. Tesla is famous for this. Are you seeing...
I think that's going to change.
Okay, I was going to see if you're seeing that or if you're going to see a change.
Well, there are bigger and bigger screens, but I think going forward in, say, the next model cycle for some cars, I think the screens will get smaller, and in some cases, I believe they'll add hard buttons to the dash to accomplish certain tasks.
Do you think that's a distraction kind of a thing, or where do you think that comes from?
No, I think it's distraction. People have said that it is, and also in Europe, they're talking about maybe not giving cars full credit in terms of a high safety rating if they don't have a certain number of hard buttons.
Oh, interesting. Another electric vehicle, at least electric-powered vehicle that's making some progress, are hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. Are you seeing any of that at the show?
No, we haven't seen much of that. There's been a little bit of a setback with fueling stations, but there's not many. The next thing would likely be hydrogen that can be in a combustion engine. That's something that's coming up. Hydrogen as the fuel, and it runs in a combustion engine.
I actually talked to a guy who has a hydrogen kit that he sells for a couple $100, where you do maybe spend 4 or 5 hours under the hood, and you connect this reservoir full of water, and it actually creates hydrogen that then is mixed with air into the air intake, and then can actually help power your vehicle with some hydrogen, give you better gas mileage and fewer emissions. So I think it's interesting technology.
Yeah, it is. Also, Porsche is developing something called e-fuel, which is basically like a synthetic gasoline, and it's near zero carbon emissions.
Wow. Teslas are obviously famous for their self-driving technology, but General Motors, Ford, they're trying to make some advancements here with that kind of technology as well. Are there any vehicles that are showing off their self-driving features or other safety features that are like that?
Yeah, it's a common feature now, and the brands that you mentioned, even Kia and Genesis and some of those brands, they're better, honestly, than Tesla. It's not hard to find a car that has a self-driving program or self-driving-ish program. that Mercedes-Benz, another one, that is better than Tesla. Tesla's does the job, but it's not nearly as good as some of the other ones.
But there's a reason that most of these self-driving vehicles are being tested in California or Arizona, where the weather is good. Right. Where I am in Colorado, it's not always optimal.
Right, that's a problem. Yeah, that's a problem.
And not only that, but also infrastructure as well. So how do we overcome that?
Well, that's going to have to be with testing, and I think that you might see states in the Sun Belt quicker to adopt those things, with rules in the snowier states having more strict regulations. It might just not work right away, as is.
Yeah. My guest is Brian Moody. He's the executive editor at Autotrader. He's standing right there on the floor of the New York International Auto Show. Automakers like to use these shows to display their latest and greatest in automotive technology and other safety advancements. In Europe and in Japan, they have laws that require passive speed control be installed in some vehicles and as a safety measure. Have you seen any of those kind of features being installed or non-traditional safety measures being installed in these vehicles?
Right. Well, some cars have that feature, although in the US, it's optional. In Europe, they're going to have it default to be on, speed warning indicators. You can turn it off, of course, once the car starts going, but you're going to have to turn it off each time you start the car up. In the US, we don't have that yet. Or maybe we never will. I don't know.
Yeah, I would think that the legislation going through Congress would never pass because we're Americans.
Yeah.
We want the freedom to go the speed we want, even though maybe it might not be the safest thing for us.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Another fun part, here in Denver, we're actually coming up to our auto show, and one of the fun parts for me at least when I go is that you can drive a Jeep in this huge indoor mountain thing. Is there something similar to that there at the New York Auto Show?
Yeah, it's called Camp Jeep. They have it so you don't drive it yourself, but they take you for a ride, and you can see the Jeep's capability, four-wheel drive, hill descent control, how the brakes work, frame twisting, all that kind of stuff. They do have that here in New York, and they've had it for many years, actually.
And they have other test driving tracks there too for other vehicles, right?
Right, like EVs, you can take a ride in an EV. So if you've never experienced that, they'll take you for a ride, and you can see how that goes. I think Cadillac's one of the big ones here.
Right. Another unique part of at least the New York Auto Show is the celebrity vehicle exhibit. This year, I saw that they have a 1948 Packard Super 8 owned by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Have you been able to see that?
Yeah, there's a bunch of old cars in the lobby celebrating the show's 125th anniversary. So there's cars that span that whole range. You can imagine that's quite a long time, from classic muscle cars all the way up to very old cars. So there are some old car things here at the auto show, including the Chrysler 6, which is one of their original cars that showed here at New York. So there's lots of old along with the new.
Yeah, and I'm sure looking at the old cars compared to how the new cars are, I've always said that I think people feel so much more comfortable in their current vehicles because it's almost like you can't feel the speed like you could when you were driving a 1975 Plymouth Fury. It's just a whole different kind of feel. So I think it brings the speeds up and it is a different driving experience completely.
Yeah, that's true. I think old cars, and there's going to be more of this, cars that provide more of a visceral feel. I think people are craving that, and electric cars don't always give you that.
Yeah. Usually these shows, there is also some kind of cool concept cars. They always draw a crowd. Have you seen any of those yet?
Well, there are a few. Mostly it's new car debuts, which would be like the Kia K4, the Subaru Outback. There's a Volkswagen SUV. There's an Audi high-performance wagon, a 600 horsepower Audi wagon that's all-wheel drive. There's some of that, not as much as there used to be back in the day, though.
Talk about some of those other unique vehicles that you've seen starting to get in the show. Some of those that are maybe going to draw some, or what you think are going to draw some of the crowd around the vehicles. Which ones are you going to think that are the most popular?
Well, I think the old ones are going to draw the biggest crowd. In the Volkswagen booth, they have an ID Buzz, which is their van, but right next to it is a classic Volkswagen bus. That's going to draw a lot of attention. Kia has something called the Nightfall Edition with their EV9. That's blacked out trim and big wheels. People almost always like that. Those types of cars, I think, will attract attention, but also people are looking for more and more inexpensive cars.
And what kind of offerings are there for the inexpensive cars, especially the new ones? If we're looking at prices increase, we're going to look for ways to save. So who's offering some of those lower price vehicles?
Right, there's plenty of that. Toyota's a good example. Kia's a good example. Subaru's a good example. Maybe the domestic automakers, not so much, but that's largely those types of automakers are offering inexpensive cars at the lower end of the range.
As you were walking around the show, it's always, gives you some energy when you're looking at this car and that car. But was there one or two or three cars that you were looking around or areas of the show that you go, oh, this is really cool, and you wanted to spend some more time there?
I think that 600 horsepower Audi wagon is pretty cool. It's all-wheel drive. It's got ceramic brakes. It's got a twin-turbo V8 engine making 621 horsepower. That, to me, was one of the cooler ones at the whole show. Of course, there's a almost nearly race-prepped Subaru right across the aisle here. That's pretty cool. Those are the ones that I think, for me personally, I like those the most.
Yeah, that Audi must be ready for the Autobahn.
Right.
Right. I always thought, all right, why are you buying a car like people do this with their Corvettes that can go 200 miles an hour?
Yeah.
But you can't go that fast on the American roads.
No, that's true. I mean, that's when you belong to a club and take it to the racetrack.
Yeah, I guess. And I have seen that there's Ferrari and Maserati and Lamborghini there at the show.
That.
Because you don't really see that at a lot of the other shows, but you do see it in New York.
Yeah, I think because New York has so much money, you tend to see more exotics. Rolls-Royce, Maserati are perfect examples. There's a whole area right over here that has just only exotic cars, some brands that you might not even have heard of. But that's a thing for New York because there's so much money in New York. It's not really for the average person to drive back and forth to work. It's really just for rich people, honestly.
Yeah, there you go. It's something I will never see. Feel free to pass if you need to at this question. But I know tomorrow there is going to be a World Traffic Safety Symposium. And I know they're going to be discussing some of the safety aspects of roads and cars and that sort of thing. And I know it's going to be one of the discussions is going to be centered around road safety through artificial intelligence. Road safety really is not just a United States issue. It's a worldwide issue.
Right. So as far as how AI goes into that, I think that's above my pay grade. I might not be able to come up with a reasonable answer about how AI contributes to road safety. But I bet you there's somebody that does know about that.
Yeah, probably. There's probably a few people. But have you heard or talking about any of the road safety there? I'm sure all the cars now are having separate road safety features.
It's mostly about the features. Like you said, most individual cars, lane departure warning is one. Lane departure correction is a big one. 360 cameras that sees all the way around the car. Many cars have a safety system that sees the car ahead and will start to brake or prep the brakes in case the car ahead slams its brakes on. It can read the road. But those are all individual vehicle features, not necessarily features of the road.
Yeah. Please tell me that most of the vehicle manufacturers are starting to get away from having the car shut itself off when you stop at a traffic light.
No, that's continuing. That's not going away.
Oh, goodness, I hate that.
It helps it get good gas mileage, and I think that's one of the reasons why they have it.
But I would think that the starter would wear out even faster.
I'm not a fan, but it is a thing.
Yeah, it is. All right, I know our time is coming up here, so finally, one of the greatest things about any auto show is the carpet. How does that new carpet smell?
It's what's the word? It is ubiquitous. It's all over the place. But the fun thing is that like in certain areas it looks like grass. Other areas it looks like plush carpet from a mansion. Other areas it looks like a road. So there's all kinds of variety.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. And briefly, I was going to mention there must be a large aftermarket contingent there, too. As I know I've always seen it here in Denver when they have all the camping stuff on top of trucks.
They do have a little bit of that. New York is not as big into that as places like Utah, Colorado, Montana, but there is a little bit. And then some aftermarket stuff that's on a different floor is also part of the display. But most of the new cars only have their own accessories that they're showing.
All right, Brian, I think that's our time. So, hey, I appreciate you spending some extra time with me. Enjoy the show and stay in touch, all right?
Okay, thank you.
All right, there you go. Brian Moody from Autotrader, executive editor there on the floor of the New York International Auto Show. And the Denver Auto Show is the same time. I'm unable to go this year, so I won't be able to see all of the offerings. I'm assuming it's gonna be very similar to the ones that I've seen in years past. But it would be nice to see, like Brian was seeing, some of the changes, and maybe there's going to be more of the sedans or hybrids. And I think that is a real trend, because that's what I've been hearing over the last year, 2 years or so, that automakers are pulling back because customers aren't really there, and incentives are being pulled back for pure electric vehicles. And now with trade war with China, we could see how that impacts the rare earth minerals that are creating batteries, or going in to help create batteries, and how that might affect electric cars in the future. So I think that's why a lot of these car companies are going to the hybrid model, where they don't have to just rely on electric, and they can have both. And I think that's where the consumer is too. They want to have the flexibility and the ease of fueling up with as they have been for the last however many 100 years, with gasoline, and then and transitioning. Maybe this is the way to transition slowly over to electric. Get used to how a plug-in electric works, and then of course get the battery assist that gets you better gas mileage, or use the battery for the short trips. And so maybe you're always using electric on in your neighborhood, or if you have your trip only goes on some surface streets and you're going 10 miles to work. And you can use battery the whole time, and maybe a little bit of gasoline. That's why I like my car, because it's that same model where it has a generator in the front of the car that generates electricity, and then off you go. And so, yes, I can fill it up with gas. Takes me 5 minutes at the gas station, but then I'm always driving on electric at the same time. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns about my discussion with Brian, or anything else, if you have a guest idea that you think should be on the show, please let me know. And when I talked to Brian, I said about that kit that converts water into hydrogen, and that hydrogen then gets funneled into or put into the air intake of a gasoline engine car, and helps give it better mileage and less emissions. I talked to a guy about those kits, and I'll be having that interview coming up in the next episode. So stay tuned for that one. It was really interesting to talk to this guy and about this kit, and how he created it, and how it works, and how you can do it too. So my wife, I don't think will let me put it in her car. It won't be able to go into my car, just because it's too specialized. But it'd be an interesting project to take for 4 or 5 hours and see if it works. Anyway, thanks again for being here. Thanks for listening. And until next time, I'm Jason Looper, the traffic guy. Be safe, and as always, happy motoring.